I am with Paul Telfer and Linsey Godfrey at Day of Days 2022. It's been a minute since we've seen each other, and since I've last seen Paul, he's wearing a clown mask.
Yeah.
Can you now? Stacy said he had to put holes in the mask, like he couldn't breathe in the mask. What's the deal?
I didn't love it, to be fair. Like, I mean, I enjoyed the job, I enjoyed the storyline, but I just wasn't ready for it. I remember, we've all gotten so used to wearing masks.
You have to wear a mask like this.
Well, that was the thing. It was like a full face mask. The thing that was difficult, honestly, was when you watch the episodes, you'll see a lot of them take place in kind of darkened sets. Like, there's not a lot of light in sets. So, you've lost all, like, looking through these tiny little pinhole eyes. And so I just never quite knew where to put my feet. And they're having me, like, carry Stacey. Stacey's she's such an athlete anyway that you can't hurt her. But I remember there was this one take where I had to, like, drop her down on, like, these manure sacks. And we did it in rehearsal because I had the mask off in rehearsal and it was fine. And then the first take we tried to do, because I can't see, I, like, put her down and I'm, like, feeling with my hands, like, okay, she's on the manure, great. I put her down and then I get up to start doing the rest of the scene and I'm just about to speak with my voice, you do the thing that I'm doing. And I hear all the crew starting to laugh. Like, everyone's just, like, laughing and getting on, like, what does Stacey do? And I turn around, and she's, like, upside down, like, falling off the manure, and just trying to hold on to not break the take, but, like, it's done. It's one of those times where I just wish they would take the outtakes, and show them to everyone.
Oh, the outtakes would be great.
It'd be amazing.
So many outtakes.
But no, the only, yeah, for sure, especially now with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like, because we have that freedom on Peacock, that, like, the outtakes on this show would just be spectacular.
They'd be spectacular.
They'd be spectacular. They already are very funny. Like, when somebody messes up and they mess up in a bad way, oh.
Did you find, though, that, like, when you found out you were going to be doing this clown thing in the script, were you troubled by it?
I was, we always, like, it was just that as soon as we got married, we were like, well, that starts the clock ticking.
Yeah, now
like,
it's going to be
the sword of Damocles is hanging over.
I mean, you go down. Like, it goes down.
Like,
yeah.
and it's like Game of Thrones. Like, they rip us apart. So this one, it was just like, well, okay. Like, he's backsliding back to his old ways. His favorite crime is kidnapping, preferably a woman or a child. Very tough. Very, like, a real tough guy criminal, kidnapping women and children all the time. But what's funny about this, at least my initial thing was like, well, all right, let's see. But what I liked about it, outside of getting to work with Stacey, it was getting to work with Stacey as Susan, because Xander had only ever interacted with Stacey, Kristen pretending to be Susan, or this one little bit that we had in the hospital where I realized that I had misinterpreted everything that was going on, and maybe Sarah Sarah hadn't dumped me. So to get all this stuff with Susan, the real Susan, I mean, there's some stuff coming up that was very, very, very funny to play, and I know the crew were laughing their heads off, but I don't know if really it's supposed to be that funny, so I'd be interested to see if it's presented comedically in the show, or if it's just, like, scary, because either way will be funny to me, because I know how much we were laughing on the day we did it, but there's all this stuff in a car, and it's very funny. Anyway.
Their journey to get together, like Paul was saying, you finally get together, and now is she where he's backsliding?
No. Like, Sarah,
if only she'd be ahead of it.
I wish she would be. I wish she'd be intervening and intervention.
Sarah always. That's not true. Sarah always thinks that Xander is up to something, but then Xander gaslights her into thinking that she's being ridiculous. So then she's like, "Oh my God, I'm such a jerk. So let me just die for this guy. Like, let me just die on this hill. He's a good guy. I can't believe I didn't believe it. I'm so awful. Like." So, like, no, of course not. She's already accused him before, and he said no, so now she has to believe it.
Did you have an issue with playing, what you had to go through with the drugging of Sarah?
Yeah.
Was that difficult to play, like, all the different, how they just destroyed, like, her mind?
Yeah, I mean, it was...
Did it trouble you, or were you like...
No,
okay.
I think you just want to do it as, like, I wanted to do it well, and I didn't want to, like, make light of something that could happen. People do have their mind deteriorate from different things, and I feel like I just wanted to be as like committed to each one as possible. I felt very overwhelmed playing other people, especially because like I had not worked with, like I had never worked with Tamara, and I hadn't at that point never worked with Emily, so I had no idea. I had no idea what I didn't know what their characters were like. I didn't know how they like I had to be told how to do Tamara because I didn't know. You gave me Emily tips, so I at least had that. Yeah, I did. I was like, I pulled him aside and I was like, can you just tell, like, and because it's post-COVID, like, Emily and I had never really got to, I couldn't go and knock on Emily's door and be like, say these lines for me.
Say stuff and talk.
Which is what I would have normally done.
Right.
Like, normally I would have gone and said, like, knocked on her door and been like, can you please read my lines? I'll read the other and let me watch you. So no, I didn't have any issue as far as her like losing her mind and having these violent outbursts and stuff like that. I don't think I realized like, oh, I see now. Like, I don't think I realized until afterwards, until I started having to take medicine. And Linsey already I struggle with it as like a regular, and I have to do it every day.
With your own meds?
Yeah, with my own meds. I have to take them in the morning and at night, and I take them like a pelican. Like that's the only, I have to hold the water and I have to go down. It's the only way. So I was happy that didn't last, just because I really don't like having to, I don't like doing it. And I can't do it like.
See, and I was thinking like.
I watch people put it on their tongue and like, and
exactly,
I'm like, nope.
and you're like just.
It won't go down. It'll come like through my nose. Like.
Well, to your point about like how you played it all and how you chose to play it all, it was so lovely because, you know, as crazy as the story is and as kind of like silly or as far-fetched as things can get, you know, we always try and just ground things a little bit in like in an emotional reality, if not like reality, at least that it makes sense, like the emotions that you're portraying. And it was really helpful to me because obviously that's strange for the acting partner as well, like just watching somebody like as she was deteriorating into being a child and all that. And I think my favorite thing I did that whole year was the scene where Xander gives up on you, essentially, where you finally just like he realizes that it's over, that she's regressing fully into childhood, and she's drawing pictures of her marrying Eric, and he's like, no, you don't have to marry me. And it was just, I remember just on the days being, God, it's really sad, and I was like legitimately
it was really sad because he's realizing like,
and as OTT as it was, it just felt real in that moment.
Yeah, it was really sad. We struggled with a lot of that kind of stuff, especially like, we struggled a lot on my last day. We struggled a lot. And then coming back, it was weirdly like bittersweet because we didn't even get to be together working. Like
she's back, but she's not really back for you. Yeah.
Did you think you would be coming back? And what, because you've come back, you've left, you've come back.
Yeah, no. There was like a period of time where I was like, I might be done there. I don't know. Like I hadn't heard anything, and but I was so relieved and so happy just because, I mean, it really is like, I love working with Paul, and I love working at Days, and I really love my co-stars, and I love our you know, our crew, and I love, you know, from the tippity top all the way to the bottom, I like everybody very much. So it felt really good to come. I text him all the time where I'm like, I'm so excited to act with you again.
It's just, it worked out so well, the Xander-Sarah chemistry that the two of you had. It just was one of those magical things that just worked, you know?
Because they framed it as a friendship first, and we were already friends. We had hit it off as friends, so we could play that. And then that was good for me because I'd never really played a romance in anything that I've done, really. Like any of the jobs that I'd had previous to Days, they'd been little, but they were very like...
Either a superhero or a
god or whatever. I mean, nice problems to have, but, you know, you weren't...
Superhero and gods don't have.
Yeah, well, at least not like rich, fully thought out ones. So it was my first time like learning how to do a lot of that stuff, and I struggled with it at first. Some of it I felt I wasn't particularly good at, like conveying sincere romantic emotions. And then as it grew, like the nature of their back and forth and the building of it allowed me to get my head around how Xander should do some of that stuff. And yeah, so I'm fortunate.
Xander, which I never felt before until he was with.
And that had to happen first, or it just would have come across as like lecherous or lustful or whatever.
Yeah, I appreciated that, and I loved the build up to us. And I think also like because you and I are so actually physical with each other, like we were just saying, like I always like hit him or whatever. Or like when we hug, it's not just like a hug. Like maybe I climb up you, or like maybe you pick me up. And those are my favorite. I thought about that the other day. My favorite is when you pick me up and put me somewhere else.
Down. Do you know how I knew? You know when we did the Newlywed game for the DOOL app and you guys aced it?
Talking about that.
We want to do it again.
I
so
know,
bad.
because I remember doing that with you guys going, and if you look at it from my perspective and you're doing it, you're like, okay, these two they know each other so well. And that was just what was so great about doing that game with you guys. It was like, I know we got to do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. It was so funny, and she was so competitive.
Yeah, it's great. We're gonna win.
And,
We're gonna win, Paul.
Stacy was struggling, and you guys were
Oh
they
my
were
God, I knew all their stuff already.
rubbing it in.
But you kind of knew. It was like, okay, these guys do know each
I
other.
am competitive, especially with
You are.
trivia games. Don't.
But you're competitive. You're competitor. I'll tell you why. Because I see your gym stuff. She is like workout.
She's stronger than me now. She's got better hip thrust than me. I can't.
You share workout tips?
I mean, yeah, like when I remember being when you got your first chin up, I was like, yes.
No, it was when I did my first wide arm pull up, and you came home.
The Xander and Sarah workout will be along with the Newlywed game. You get the workout and the Newlywed game.
Seems like a nice spin-off for the Peacock we could do.
You get both of that.
Zara.com.
Do you have your favorite worst? Like, what's the worst thing you think Xander's done in the entire time?
The absolute worst thing he ever did, like the baby switch. The baby switch is by far, like, just in terms of like the worst thing, worst thing. It's clearly that, even though obviously he did it for the reasons that he did it for. I'm trying to think what the absolute, like when I because he was so different when he first came on the show. It was more like, honestly, I still think like when I see pictures of Xander like strangling Nicole with a garrote, I'm always like, oh yeah, that was Xander. That was Xander. That was the same guy. Like, you know what I mean? So it's, a lot has happened. There's been a lot of water under the bridge, but he's still that guy who tried to garrote Nicole. So, that image is hard to let go of. Or like cooking them in a pizza oven, but you all forgave me for it because it led to Eric and Nicole getting it on. So they're like, well, we love Xander now.
It all comes back around. Well, they're wrapping me up. So good to see you, Linsey. Great to see you, Paul. Watch them both on Days of Our Lives, streaming on Peacock.